extra hour of sleep, so I got up normal time, which was an hour early. So I'm just grateful to be with you on this gorgeous fall day. And so we're walking through physical perfection, the chapter on physical perfection in the Science of Mind. We're on the section called How to Heal, and healing is clear thinking. We're on page 202 and 203. And so the section on how to heal, he's specifically in this section talking about if you're doing healing work for someone else, and refers to the person as the patient. And we remember that Ernest Holmes, when he first started working with mental and spiritual healing, he actually had a sanatorium, and people came to him to be physically healed. Countless documentations of healings, and they were his patients. And so we don't normally think of the people today that we're doing this work for. We think of them either as our clients, if we're a professionally licensed practitioner and spiritual coach, or we just think of them as our friends and family and people that we want to support and help. And we use the term practitioner because it really means everybody who is practicing the science of mind, the principles of the science of mind, practicing spiritual mind treatment for spiritual healing. And so when we see this term practitioner, unless it says professionally licensed practitioner, this word means all of us, any one of us that is doing this work for ourselves or for someone else. And of course, everything that he says that we do for someone else is also true when we're doing the work for ourselves. So we don't want to discount anytime we're reading it and it says this is what the practitioner is supposed to do for the patient. This means this is what we're supposed to do for ourselves, or what we're supposed to do when we're doing this work for and about someone else that we love and care about. All right, so how to heal. The first thing is that we talked about this last week. We don't treat the disease as belonging to the person, ourselves or someone else, that we are doing the treatment for. It doesn't belong to them, because if we thought it was part of their being, we could not free them from it. So we seek to realize that this inherent wholeness and perfection, physical perfection, is already present. This is actually the absolute spiritual truth. It is the intangible impulse and idea that outpictures in form. That's the actual spiritual truth. That's what we want to move our ability to perceive from illness to this indwelling health. So here's the paragraph. It's the second paragraph in How to Heal. This is true whether we're, as I said, we're doing this for ourselves or for someone else. First, recognize your own perfection. And here we don't mean perfection as in flawlessness as we see on the magazine cover, right? Perfection means wholeness, the wholeness of who we actually are and what the truth of our being is. Recognize our own perfection and build up the same recognition for the person we're doing treatment for. And then I love this statement. You are then ready to directly attack the thought that binds. Sometimes I think we think spiritual work is it's all very soft and angelic, and we're going to somehow allow things to unfold in some form or fashion. I mean, this is fine in terms of a way of being in the world and a way of allowing intuition to guide. But when we are doing a direct and definite and specific spiritual mind treatment for physical healing, I love that he says we directly attack the thought, not the illness, not the disease, certainly not the person. We directly attack the thought, recognizing that our word destroys it and stating that it does. You may then take into account and specifically mention everything that needs to be changed, every so-called broken law or false thought. Then finish your statement with the realization of peace, remaining for a few moments in silent recognition that your work is done, complete, and perfect. And so when we do healing work, when we're doing specific healing work, we actually want to be definite and specific in our spiritual mind treatments, in our spiritual healing work. Certainly there are times when we do spiritual work and we're inviting inspiration and intuition, and we allow things to spontaneously unfold, and we love to invite serendipity, but not when there's physical healing to be done. We want to be specific. It's the heart, it's the lungs. We need to have this particular system restored to wholeness. We are very deliberate, very definite, and very specific. And we are mentioning anything that needs to be changed, every so-called broken law or false thought. Now, we're going to get to what that covers in a little bit when we go a little further through all of this. But let's remember the work is not to be hard. We ourselves are not actually doing the healing. What we are doing is remembering that wholeness is the inherent truth, the inherent reality. And we are revealing it to ourselves with such deep conviction that the law must produce that this is an already accomplished fact. And we recognize that the spiritual truth of the person that we're doing this work for, the spiritual truth of them is that they need no healing. It's a restoration or a realignment or a remembering or reawakening of this inherent wholeness and health. And that any obstruction that hinders this healing is being removed. And that's our work. We don't heal anyone. Our responsibility is to uncover the truth and to so deeply uncover it that it's not just an intellectual idea, but we sense it and feel it as the truth within ourselves, and we perceive it when we look out at the physical world, right? We don't just conceive of it as an idea, but we actually perceive it. So this means we can look at someone, including ourselves, who has a disease or an illness or an ailment of some sort, and we can see with our mind's eye, with our deepest ability to know truth. We can perceive the spiritual truth regardless of the veil of the human experience. We cannot heal successfully while we recognize sickness as a reality to the spirit. Do you see? It's not that it isn't an experience that we're having. It's not that it's not real to our own experience or the experience of that person, but it has no reality to the spiritual truth, to the spiritual essence of an individual or of spirit itself. And so this is the middle of the first full paragraph on 203. While we maintain that disease is primarily a thing of thought, we do not deny the actuality of its experience nor the suffering it causes. Of course not, or we wouldn't be doing healing work. Instead, we seek to heal it, and we cooperate with all, no matter the method they are using to relieve distress. Right? We talked about this a few weeks before. We do our spiritual work, we go to the doctor, we go to the therapist, we go have Reiki work, we go to the acupuncturist, we go to have supplements, right? Whatever our intuition guides us to do, our spiritual work works with all of those things. And of course, we don't deny the experience. That would just be insanity. And it would be hurtful to the people that we love and care about. It's not that they're not having the experience. It's that there's nothing in spiritual truth or the essential nature of life that's holding that in place. There is something else that is being outpictured other than the deep spiritual truth. And so we have to eliminate doubt and fear from our own thought, see ourselves or our patient as a divine being, and that our word is the law, because we are replanting or uncovering the truth. So this is, this is the beginning of this idea of how to heal. We see that disease has nothing spiritually holding it in place, other than simply the outpicturing of some false thought or belief or unconscious acceptance, we differentiate the physical symptoms or physical situation from the person that is receiving the treatment, ourselves or someone else, and we focus on what's the spiritual truth of the wholeness that is already present, that is already the indwelling nature of life seeking to express as that person, and the intelligence that knows how to build hearts and lungs and bodies and fingernails and circulatory systems and mental processes, and all of that. And so when we understand what we're doing, we don't have to feel like we're doing the healing. What if I can't believe it? What if I can't do it? What if I don't know it? What if, right? We're not the ones doing the healing. Our job is to release all of those thoughts, move into that place of spiritual truth, and then trust the universal principle to do what it does, which is to make truth manifested, to bring it into being. So I want to go on. I'm going to invite you to think about what comments, questions you have about this. But I want to go on to this next section because this is now the meat and potatoes of how to heal. And it's entitled Healing is Clear Thinking. This is the meat and potatoes of how to heal. Spiritual mind healing is the result of clear thinking and logical reasoning, which presents itself to consciousness and is acted upon by mind. It is a systematic process of reasoning which unearths the mental cause or idea underlying disease and presents the truth about one's being. This cannot be stressed strongly enough. It is not something that we necessarily emotionally experience. What we emotionally experience is our conviction that the law manifests. And what we do in our work is we demonstrate our use in the law. But we are seeking to show ourselves through clear thinking and logical reasoning, presenting a restored recognition of wholeness to consciousness. Healing is not being fooled by the condition, and that's probably the hardest thing to do, right? Is clear thinking, to go into a hospital room, see somebody lying there, not deny that they're there, that they're having a physical experience or that it's hurt and they're suffering, not to deny the experience, of course not, but to perceive with our mind's eye, with our deepest knowing, to perceive that what's actually true about that person is an inherent wholeness. And that this experience is not the truth, the absolute truth with a capital T about someone. When you are treating, if there is any slight point which is not clear, do not continue with the treatment. Stop at once. Go back to your analysis of ultimate reality and build your whole argument upon it in order to get a clear consciousness, right? And so when we get a clear consciousness, that means our minds, our hearts, our whole being is establishing and accepting the spiritual truth regardless of the evidence of our eyes or even of our emotions. We might be very emotionally compassionate for the person or for ourselves who is having this struggle or this physical disease. We might see it with our eyes that somebody is experiencing illness or disease. But what we need to do is to stop and go back to our analysis of ultimate reality and build our argument upon it. Despite this outer condition, what I know to be true is this deep spiritual truth. Whether I feel it or not, my feeling still might be about compassion and towards someone. And if someone really close to me, of course, that can even be that much more challenging. but to really engage with, what do I believe? Do I believe that disease is somehow the will of God? Do I believe that it's somehow sent to people to create a lesson for them? Or do I recognize that it has no place in spiritual reality, that something else is playing out, and that my job is to turn my attention to the deep causal spiritual truth? So let me close with this last thing. So here are the things that outpicture as disease and illness. Claim that no form of race suggestion, belief in limitation, subjective idea of limitation, thought of karma, fatalism, theology, or hell, horoscope, or any other belief has power, except none of them, including inherited diseases and all the syndromes that are being made up now today by the pharmaceutical companies, except none of them. If you have ever believed in them, if you have ever believed that the stars govern you, or that your environment governs you, or that your opportunities govern you, recognize this as an hypnotic condition into which you have fallen, and deny every one of them until there's no longer anything in you that believes in them. See, I think sometimes we think a false belief, or that we have an illness or a disease because we've had some thought related to that specific disease. But sometimes it's just our domestication, as Don Miguel Ruiz talks about it. Our belief in a sense of separation, our belief in the facts of the human condition, our belief in statistics, our belief in crisis, and that diseases are this horrible thing that we have to fight in some form or fashion, right? And so the race suggestion, right? As so many people die of heart attacks. So many, if you're too stressed out, these are the things that are going to happen to you. Belief in limitation. I'm not worthy of having a good life, or I am simply unable, right? A subjective idea of limitation. There's only so much I can do, or as a human being, I'm subject to ailments or aging or any of this nonsense. Thought of karma. Well, this is obviously a lesson that's an outpicturing of some horrible thing I've done. So thank you for the lesson. Stop thanking for, it's good to know that there's good that comes of it, but stop thanking the universe for lessons, because the universe will say, oh, good, you learn through lessons. What will you get? More lessons. Let's stop that. Fatalism. Well, it was meant to be. This just was meant to be. Fatalism. There's nothing I can do about it. Theology or hell. It's the will of God in some form or fashion. Even subtly, right? Somehow this has been brought on so that I can become a better person. Horoscope or any other false belief, right? Anything. These are all the ways in which we bind ourselves into an experience that is limited. And all the ways, even lifestyle, that I have to be this busy to get ahead. I have to work all the time to make sure I have value. And I can't move effortlessly in the world, right? All of which creates stress, which creates wear and tear on the body. So these are the things that let me see. I love this. If you have ever believed that the stars govern you, or anything outside of yourself, that your environment governs you, or that your opportunities govern you, recognize this as a hypnotic condition into which you and I and all of us has fallen. Well, this is just how it is. This is, it's just how it is. No, it's not just how it is. And deny every one of them until there's no longer anything in you that believes in them. At that moment, the absolute spiritual truth of who we are has the opportunity to reemerge, to shine through, to bring healing. All right. I hope this is lots of good juicy fodder for your thoughts about this topic. So we're going to turn to Ryan and see what kind of a conversation we can get into. Good morning, Ryan.
Good morning, Dr. Petra, and good morning to all of you who are watching us out there on the Zoom room or in Facebook land. So if you'd like to question or comment, go ahead if you're here in the Zoom room and hit the raise your hand icon, and I can call you into the room. Or as always, you can put your comments in the chat box and I can read them out loud. And the same goes for those who are on Facebook Live. Go ahead and put your comments or questions inside of the comments and I will read them out loud. And I just like to let everybody know that I like to keep it anonymous when it comes to the quotes on Zoom as well as Facebook too. So feel free to ask anything that you guys want. And my first question is, what does fodder mean?
Fodder? Food. Food. Fodder is actually what you put in the stables for the cows and the chickens and the horses. That's food.
Yeah, sorry, that was a very millennial question of me to ask.
I love it.
We celebrate our diversity over here.
Yes, we do.
So I have one of the chats that's here. I'll read out loud.
Okay.
As you guys are hurrying to hit the raise your hand icon, because I know you guys have questions and comments you'd like to share. But this question, or comment I should say, says, where does mental equivalent play a critical point in a spiritual mind treatment? Doesn't feeling compassion or worry or stress or fear counter my mental equivalent, rendering my spiritual mind treatment ineffective? Doesn't a causal spiritual mind treatment require absolute conviction, embodying the convinced that the sick person is healed, that there is already complete in the mind of God, etc., etc.? Feeling fire, the fire from within. If I am feeling compassion, fear, sad, etc., for the person that I am treating for, where is the line between not being convinced enough, mental equivalent, and trusting in the healing in spite of my own personal feelings?
Yeah, it's a great question, right? And what we don't want to do is divorce our spirituality from our humanity. So the question is, how do we have compassion for someone's experience without perceiving them as limited by that experience? Can we? Can I have compassion for the fact that I've made some pretty horrendous mistakes in my life, and yet I still see the spiritual truth of myself and can see the spiritual truth of myself in those moments? Can I look at the people around me, the loved ones in my life? The biggest lesson, the biggest teacher for this, for me, has been my son. Can I have compassion for the trauma of being a different kind of person in adolescence and seeking desperately to fit in? Can I have compassion for that while knowing the spiritual truth that he's whole, perfect, and complete? Do you see, these things are not diametrically opposed. What we want to do is not bring our compassion into our spiritual mind treatment, right? We actually have compassion for the experience, but we don't bring it into our spiritual mind treatment. Our spiritual mind treatment is done in the absolute. When we're doing our spiritual work, we are creating an absolute mental equivalent. And we are not healing that person. What we are doing is building the mental equivalent of seeing the truth that that person is already whole, perfect, and complete. But we are not going to get on the phone to them and then say, quit your bitching, you're whole, perfect, and complete. We may say, complaining about it isn't really going to help. So what can we find that's working? How can we lift your spirits? And sometimes we may just lend a listening ear, right? So we bring our humanity to the interaction. We bring our spiritual conviction and absoluteness to our spiritual work. Do you see? These are not, again, there's not diametrically opposed to each other. We are spiritual beings having human experience. And to pretend that the human experience is not being experienced is, quite frankly, it's hateful and hurtful. And it's judgmental of another person. And so our ability to see both of those things at the same time is part of our spiritual maturity, right? It's part of our ability to be with someone while knowing their spiritual truth. And yeah, it's a great question. And what we tend to do is we either fall on one side or the other. I'm either so compassionate and so heartfelt and so wanting to empathize with the person that I bring that into my spiritual mind treatment, and then my spiritual mind treatment is just filled with continuing to engage with that which we don't want. Or I'm so absolute in my spiritual mind treatment that, boy, do I speak to that person from the absolute, and I can be a little judgmental and disdainful. And like, what's the matter with you? Can you just get your shit together? Can't you just see your spiritual truth? And I can see your spiritual truth. Stop it. Yes, of course, there are those people in our life that we have that agreement with. But in general, these are, we are both of these things at the same time. So I hope that addresses your comment. Thanks for your comment. It's really important. Ryan.
Yeah, so this is a question that came in off Facebook. It says, can denying something sometimes feel like giving it power? What you resist persists?
Yes. So when we do spiritual denial, we are not resisting the experience. Because you're right, resisting an experience, pretending it's not there, and resisting an experience just makes it worse. What we are denying is that it has any spiritual power to it. This is a very different thing. So I don't resist the feeling, well, I'll just take from my own experience. Recently I had a pretty horrific fall. That I talked about a few weeks ago. I had a pretty horrific fall in August. I'm still recovering. I had 3 fractured ribs and gigantic bruises, huge bruise on my face and my leg, and they thought maybe I'd fractured some vertebra. Thank God I hadn't. I was in pretty significant pain, and I wanted my beloved to take care of me, which she did. She did a fabulous job taking care of me. And the entire time that I was living in a little camp chair on ice and taking more Advil than I care to think about, the entire time I was doing my spiritual work. I'm one with God, I'm totally healed. I'm one with God, I'm totally healed. And sure, and then when I would get up, it'd be a little moaning and groaning, and I'd have to take myself, it took days before I could take a shower. And it hurt. And I didn't want her to say, do your spiritual work and it won't hurt. No, my body was healing. And so to hold that consciousness of healing and that's what's going on, that is our work to do. And so what I denied was that there was anything in spirit that had caused this fall, that there was anything in spirit that could possibly keep things from healing, that there was anything in the universe that was in any way, shape, or form supporting this pain that I was in. No. The universe is wholeness. And so when I got home and I went to the doctor for the first time, they could not believe that the fall had only been 4 weeks ago. The doctor said, well, you're as healed as if you were 2 months down the road. I am stunned. Well, I wasn't stunned because I denied that there was spiritual truth to the bruises and the brokenness in my body, that there was anything in the spiritual realm holding that in place. But in fact, what was happening on the spiritual level was everything was rushing in to heal. Do you see the difference? That's different than denying the experience or resisting. This is terrible. This is a terrible thing. I'm not going to look at it. No, we look at it. We look at bold-faced and we say, there's no spiritual truth in this experience. That's what we're denying. And it's a critical and subtle difference. So I really thank you for that comment or question. It is a critical and subtle difference that what we're doing. All right, Ryan. More comments, or shall I carry on?
No, I was just going to let you know I took a real big fall too.
Did you?
Yeah, this morning I took a fall back an hour.
Oh.
That wasn't so great after your traumatic.
You're so
sorry,
funny.
guys. Sorry.
Is that another millennial joke? Come on.
Yeah, that was. Anyways, so I have a question.
Okay.
A lot of times when we talk about this subject, sometimes people don't want to be healed. Sometimes what they're looking for is a wound mate. WOUND. Mm-hmm. And sometimes doing this spiritual mind treatment isn't necessarily the cure for their problem, because their problem, it hasn't brought itself to the surface. And sometimes they're not even aware of it. But, you have this symptom where it's constantly going on and there's no manifestation or no demonstration that the healing has happened. And there might be something under that. So what are your thoughts about people doing that?
Oh, well, there's always something under it, right? Always. There's always something under it. What's happening in our bodies is an outpicturing of what's going on under it. And so that's a great question. It has a lot of different answers. First of all, if you're bleeding, for God's sakes, do the treatment for the blood to stop, right? Regardless of whether somebody has some deep belief in their woundedness and is looking for somebody to take care of them. There's nothing wrong with doing spiritual mind treatment for a specific healing of a specific ailment. Sometimes that underlying belief is hard to get to when we're really suffering an actual physical experience. When we find ourselves doing physical, when we find ourselves having our physical ailments over and over and over and over and over coming up, or sometimes they move around in the body, we can invite a recognition that there might be some underlying thing. Now, whether it's better to do this work about yourself, not about somebody else, because frankly, it's not our business to be about somebody else's work unless you happen to have that kind of a relationship with them, right? If you're their prayer buddy or you're in a spiritual partnership with them and you have an agreement that you can call each other gently to the possibility that there's a pattern being played out, right? But we're not each other's thought police or consciousness police. It's not like we have never done that. So you want to be really careful and gentle, because the other thing is, of course, rather than having judgment, oh, look, that person's just looking for, is just wounded and looking for somebody to either match their woundedness or care for their woundedness. We can be pretty judgmental about that, or we can have compassion, because the truth is we've all done that in some form or fashion, right? Some of us have done some healing work around that. So we want to be careful about doing this about another person. But it is critical that we do this work for ourselves. And so if we find ourselves over and over and over again in a place where it appears that we have physical ailments that are over and over and over again manifesting themselves, here is the $64,000 question. If we have not been able to unearth what is this symptom outpicturing, right? And I think we've talked about this a few weeks ago. Listen to the words you're using. Listen to how you describe it. Listen to the way you talk about how it impacts your life. All of that will reveal the underlying patterns of belief, or can really reveal those underlying patterns of belief. But let's say you can't, or you haven't yet. And you have an inkling that maybe, as Ryan asked this question, we have an inkling that maybe we're one of these people that actually prefer being wounded. The $64,000 question. Are you ready? Write this one down. What's the payoff? What's the payoff for being wounded or unhealable or always having an ailment or always being sick? What's the payoff? Mind you, this is a very, very deep and powerful question. If you do some journaling around it, you'll probably get monumentally pissed off about the question. You will dance around it, have all kinds of rationalizations and reasons why. But keep asking yourself the question, what's the payoff? And over time it will reveal itself to you. The payoff for being wounded, diseased, ill, sick. Somebody will take care of you. You don't have to take responsibility. This is the way I saw my mother get love. Who knows? Who knows what it is? Right? I'm not worth anything more than this. The only way I can get attention is not to be well. I don't know what it is. Only you know what it is. Don't let anybody tell you what they think it is. But it is the question. What is the payoff? And until we're really willing to look at that square dead in the face and say, really? Do I really want to live the rest of my life based on that? We will continue to outpicture ailments and wounds and diseases and whatever it is. But as we begin to tackle that, whatever the answer to that is, I call that an octopus belief, right? It's a belief that's so deeply embedded we're barely aware of it. And it has its tentacles in all kinds of outpicturings in our life that we're not necessarily aware of. So those tentacles will be not only in our physical experience, but I promise you it's showing up at your work, at your relationships, with your money, with your self-expression, with your it's showing up in lots of different ways. And when we tackle that deep-rooted untruth, and we start dismantling it, all those tentacles begin to dissipate and recede, and we're amazed that not only do our bodies begin to recover and be restored to wholeness, but so do a whole bunch of different aspects of our life. So I want to go back to this statement. First, recognize your own perfection. This isn't how to heal. Then build up the same recognition for the person you're doing treatment for. Then you are then ready to directly attack the thought that binds, recognizing that your word destroys it and stating that it does. Right? So you take the answer to what's the payoff and you directly attack that thought, that false understanding of ultimate reality and how it's playing out as you and me, and you replace it with spiritual truth, with the deep spiritual truth about the ultimate reality, the fact that you're sourced from that ultimate reality, and therefore everything that you can say that is good about ultimate reality is also true about you. Wholeness and perfection and joy and abundance and love and peace and all of those things. And so, yeah, that is a really great question. And it is true. Sometimes we don't want to be healed. Sometimes we are, in fact, around people who don't want to be healed. And if we're around people who don't want to be healed, it's less about them than it is about us. So we might ask ourselves the question, what's the payoff for me being around someone who doesn't want to be healed? Well, because it always gets to be about them, doesn't it? They're the problem. And I never have to look at my own, do I? Because it's always about them. It's always it's their problem. Well, they can't. Why can't they heal themselves? I always have to take care of them. I'm always engaged with them. Right? It's called codependence. And so when we see that in another, if we are able to see it compassionately, great. If we're in a close relationship and we wonder why that person can't get their shit together, then we have to ask ourselves the question, what's the payoff for me being attracted into this relationship, right? Because relationships are always, and they're not just mirrors, like like you're a mirror of me, you're exactly like me. I think of them more like lock and key. I am the perfect fit for your dysfunctional belief. And you are the perfect fit for my dysfunctional belief. And so we find each other so we can continue to play out our dysfunctional beliefs. And we continue to reinforce them because you continue to behave exactly in alignment with the way that I believe life doesn't work. Right? So the person I'm in a relationship with is always unavailable because my father was unavailable and I could never get love from him. So I'm always attracting unavailable people and then trying to get love from them. Right? And so you fit that pattern, and so we're attracted to each other. Do you see? So these are the questions that I have to ask myself. What's the payoff? Why am I in a relationship with someone who doesn't actually want to get healed? So, and you know, we have to stop right there. We start to get up on the rocky shores of what does it mean to be healed and what is perfection, right? Perfection is a lot of things, but it's not what you see on the magazine cover. Somebody is actually whole and perfect even if they have anxiety. Somebody can be whole and perfect even if they're missing an arm. Somebody is already whole and perfect even if they are still growing and learning about their own underlying beliefs and healing them. Everyone is whole, perfect, and complete at the truth of their being. Always. That's always already true. And we don't have to be, we can be so overly fixated on self-improvement that we don't love ourselves and each other for the very individual, unique quirkiness that we are. And so, yeah, we just want to make sure that my sense of you're not healing isn't just a judgment. Like, could you just get over yourself and be more like me? Okay, but that's a whole relationship talk that we could move into. And so it's a great question, and these are profoundly important things to think about. So I guess I'm going to stop there before I go on and just check in again with you, Ryan.
Yeah, so there's a lot of great questions that are coming in, and I'm trying to decide which one to end it on. But so I'll do this one. My brother has been diagnosed with a cancerous tumor in his colon requiring surgery. My dad is continuously having surgery to address a series of skin cancers. They are living in this reality. I want to hold their spiritual truth despite their belief in the reality of their experience. Can I do that without the current ability to participate? They want my prayers and want to believe in healing. Is this enough for them at this time?
Yes, absolutely. If they've asked for your prayers, you do the very best you can. I love the fact that Ernest Holmes says we can demonstrate in spite of our doubts and fears. We can demonstrate in spite of someone else's doubts and fears. And so stay focused, stay committed. Ultimately, remember that the healing is not your responsibility. It is your responsibility to see truth and to give them the gift of seeing that truth in your own consciousness. That's your responsibility. And to love them no matter what, to love them even if they never get healed, to love them even if they continue to believe in cancer and the medical establishment in a way that perpetuates this. And this is the dual place, right? We can have compassion for someone's experience, compassion that they're going through this, be loving and supportive as a human being to human being. And then when you go do your spiritual work each and every day, you see them as whole, perfect, and complete. You see them as spiritual beings. You see that every activity, every doctor, every nurse, every procedure, every drug, everything that is available to them, they attract only what is perfect and right for them. Anything that is done with absolute wholeness and perfection as the result. All of it's part of the intelligence and wisdom of the universe manifesting itself for their physical well-being and healing. Don't leave any of it out. No, include all of it. It's all part of the intelligence and wisdom of life unfolding. And these are the two pieces that we hold, especially for our loved ones, for our fathers and brothers and mothers and sisters and children, right? We hold the compassionate love of the human being from heart to heart, soul to soul, and we see the spiritual truth in our own consciousness about them. That's the greatest gift we can give them. And each one of us is whole enough and powerful enough and centered enough to be able to do both of those things. Because that's who we are. That's the gift we give of our light, right? The light of our love and the light of our truth. And I'm sorry that your father and your brother are going through this. And I can only imagine what a light and a gift you are to them. So thank you for the question and the comment. I really appreciate it. All right, so we're going to close on that. There's great stuff in this next bit that we're reading. So keep reading, keep asking yourself, how do I apply this to my life, to my situations, to the situations of the people around me who have asked me to do prayer work with them or for them? And we'll carry on with this conversation next week. In the meantime, for the question of so join us for the Sunday celebration here shortly. Reverend Karen is a fabulous conversation as we move into Thanksgiving and Gratitude Month. And we'll see you on Wednesday night or on Tuesday night when she starts her class on the teachings of Jesus around abundance and prosperity. All kinds of great stuff coming up. So, love you. See you soon. Bye for now.